SoundCloud, my biggest fear always is not hitting the record button.
Yeah,
I did it.
I know.
I did it once. So, Gary, you're gonna laugh at this. So many times when I like let you go and let you rock and roll, I'm like on the phone with candidates, on the phone with clients, because I'm recruiting still behind the scenes. And
Yeah.
a fire blew up, something like in the government contracting space on Friday. All of a sudden, they got done with the talk, and I went to hit stop record, and I was like, the record button sitting there,
Oh
and I'm like,
God.
I just wanted to cry.
Yeah. I've done it too.
So, anyways, I am so excited to have Gary here. Gary is one of the best people when it comes to performance. Have you guys ever seen the drop in the chat real quick? Have you guys ever seen the show Billions by chance? Yes or no? All right, cool. Think of this. If you've seen the show Billions, there is a performance coach in there named Wendy Rhodes who literally just is the person that is can make these traders become these superstar traders, and it's just absolutely amazing. Here's the cool thing. We have, instead of having Wendy, we have Gary here in the recruiting space. Gary is one of the best performance coaches there is when it comes to our world because he also used to be a firm owner. He used to deal with every single challenge that we did, the ups, the downs, the roller coaster. So I'm excited to have Gary share with you guys. So, Gary, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for having me. And I'm really excited to be with you guys. We're going to use the time we have as best as possible. I want to make it as valuable as possible for you. The topic today is win the morning, win the day. How predictable mornings drive predictable revenue. And that's something that all of us could implement. It's what I like about this topic is that it's something related to discipline, structure, and systems. It's not esoteric. It's not super complicated, but it is life changing. And I mean that literally. It's life changing in terms of your personal life and your business life. So, what I'm going to be talking about applies to both. So, let me show you where we're heading today. All right, here we go. So, first of all, I love this quote from John Maxwell. You'll never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine. There's another quote I didn't put on here. I forget who said it, but it's routine in a intelligent man is a sign of ambition. Routine in an intelligent man is a sign of ambition. So structure, routine, discipline are a sign of ambition. And I really want you to think about that because, again, this is within your control. Sometimes our business feels out of control, right? The pace of change, the pace of, AI and automation, it can feel completely overwhelming. Like you want to drink of water and you're trying to take a drink of water out of a fire hose, right? It's just too much. So this allows you to slow down, add structure, and add a little bit of sanity to your desk and to your company. And that's what we're going to work through today. If you don't know me, I've been doing this a very long time. I've known Ben for a very long time as well. He's been a part of my programs, and I've been lucky enough to, work with people like him and many others in my program. I've developed people over the last 20 plus years in this industry. And my passion is really human performance. My passion is helping people to be at their best. And so for the last several years, I've been studying with the Flow Research Collective, which is Stephen Kotler. If you know him, he's written kind of the handbook on flow theory, and so I've been studying that for the last several years, which is the science of peak performance, which is very very exciting. But to give you a little introduction in terms of my background and why this applies to me as much as you, is that when I started in the business, I was very much like this guy spinning plates here. I was in reactive mode almost all of the time. And I was working really, really, really hard, but not hitting my goals and not achieving what I wanted to achieve. And I had the added difficulty. We had an autistic son. He's still autistic. His name is Nathan. But at the time, we had a lot of behavior issues. So he would go to school in the morning, and I would get a call from my wife that we had to go pick him up because he ran off or he hit somebody or something happened. He had a meltdown. And this would happen 2 or 3 times a week. It was very, very difficult. He also had epilepsy. So we had a lot of medical issues and behavior issues with him. And because of that, my schedule, I had just started my company. This is back in 1998. And I had just started my company, but my schedule was irregular because I couldn't rely on the fact that I was going to be able to come in every day. And so it forced me to take a hard look at my business, at my schedule, and at how I was using my time because I didn't have enough of it. And so I had to shift my focus. The focus is no longer on hours, how many hours I work. The focus had to become the results of that time. So I needed to compress time. I needed to turn up the high resolution on the results of my work and not so much get focused on how long I was in the office. So I really front loaded my day. I started getting up at 5 a.m. I found that if I wanted to work out, I had to work out at 5 in the morning. If I tried to work out at 9 in the morning, that would be disrupted, right? So everything had to become much more clear and mapped out for me. I also found that contingency search didn't work for me because it was just too unpredictable. So I switched to retained search. All of these things were done to kind of deal with the chaos that was going on in our home at the time. And it was difficult, but it really was a game changer for me because the effect that it had is it's sort of like if you were going on vacation. Let's say today is Thursday, right? If let's pretend it was Monday and you were going on vacation on Friday, so you've got 5 days to work. Generally speaking, that work week before you take a 2 week vacation to Europe, let's say, right, a real vacation where you're leaving the country, generally, that week will be your most productive week of the year. Why? Because you've compressed time. You have to get more done. You have to be more focused. So you've got focused intensity that wouldn't exist if you had all the time in the world. And that's essentially what happened to me. And it helped my business. I actually produced more as a result of compressing time. And it gave me a lot of confidence because I realized it was about systems and this idea that the system does the work, I just operate the system. The checklist does the work, my team operates the checklist, right? It's that kind of idea that we're going to lean on systems and that's what's going to do the hard work for us. I practice jujitsu. So if I were to defeat somebody in a competition, I could say I defeated them, or I could say my jujitsu defeated them. The jujitsu did the work, I operated jujitsu. Hopefully that makes sense. But it's just a shift in perspective to more of a systemic thought. And over time, when I started coaching, I added the what I had developed myself with my team to the collective wisdom of 100 or more people that I've interviewed over the 20 years that I've been coaching for our program. And you're getting the collective wisdom of that. So where are we heading today? 3 sections I'm going to talk about, and we're going to go, normally this could be a full day seminar. So we're obviously compressing time here. So you're going to get a summary of each of these sections. And I define them as number one, power up. I say 5 a.m. because that's when I wake up, but it's whatever time you wake up, right? That's the first thing you're going to launch your boot up sequence. Just like your computer has a boot up sequence, your morning should have a boot up sequence, and it should be deliberate if you want to be a high producer, right? If you don't need to worry about it, then it's not such a thing. But if you really want to be a high productivity person, you got to get more deliberate. So we got power up at 5 a.m., power on 8 a.m. That's when you actually get to the office and you start working. Again, yours might be 8:30 or 9, whatever. We're just giving general idea here. And then lastly, the thing that ties it all together is your power down. 4 o'clock, that's your planning time. You're planning, you're going to engineer an epic tomorrow. Okay, so I'll go through all 3 of these sections today. So let's start by defining a little bit what the problem is, why this is even a topic worth talking about. And the problem is what's called constant partial attention. And this is something all of us have to deal with. Here's some statistics. The average knowledge worker is only productive 2.3 hours per day. Okay, so they're probably working 9 hours plus per day. They're productive for 2.3 hours per day. Every week they spend half a day duplicating the work they did before. So lots of duplication, lots of overlapping systems that are not efficient. They check email every 6 minutes. Recruiters probably check email every 6 seconds, right? Or every 60 seconds. Every time you check email, you are interrupting the flow. You're interrupting your ability to get into flow. And so this alone, if you take nothing away from this seminar, if you were to check email, let's say 5 times a day, first thing in the morning, 11 a.m., 1 p.m., 4 p.m., whatever your schedule would be, your productivity would skyrocket as a result of that alone, if you're somebody who's checking email multiple times per hour. So that's just something to think about. They're interrupted 56 times per day. That could be your chimes on your phone. It could be things popping up. Generally speaking, this is the biggest productivity killer in every office in the country. This is the one that will kill your productivity and your team's productivity. So when it comes to the phone, I think you have to make a conscious choice. Is it going to tell me when I interact with it? Is it in control of me? It tells me when I interact with it, or am I in control? Do I tell it when I'll interact with it? Same thing with email. Does email tell me when I interact with it, or do I tell email when I interact with it? It's a conscious choice that has massive implications for you. They waste 36 hours per month in unnecessary calls and meetings. Most devastating of all, they're interrupted every 11 minutes. And here's the part that is really interesting. It takes up to 23 minutes to get back into focus after a disruption. So you can just see what's happening here. Interrupted every 11 minutes, and it takes 23 minutes to get back to not a flow state, but let's just say to a focused state. So that's why it's called constant partial attention, because you're never quite fully present with what you're doing. And as a result, you're extremely busy, extremely stressed, and not very productive, right? So I just want to paint the picture. I'm not saying you, I'm just saying that's the average white collar worker. And I think recruiters would score worse than these statistics just based on how chaotic the business is, right? So that's what we're up against. And the point of this program is really to help you to move from being reactive, from feeling overwhelmed, to being more productive and hyper productive and proactive. That's really the choice you have. Am I going to be reacting to my desk, or am I going to be proactive, right? And it's harder to do today than it was 20 or 30 years ago, right? Just because of technology, because of phones, because of social media, all of the things that are distracting us. But that's exactly why we need a system like this. So let's dive into the first part, power up, which is to launch your boot up sequence at whatever time you wake up in the morning. And I want to give you an example. Immanuel Kant was a philosopher, an author, a professor. And just to give you a historical sense of what I mean by a morning routine, this is what he did every morning. Okay, so he got up at 5 a.m. like myself. He would have tea. It was made by his butler, I believe, and it was tea. Plus, he would smoke one pipe, one bowl of a pipe. And he looked at it like a smoking meditation. So that was kind of his start off to the day, kind of a slow start to the day. He didn't wake up and maniacally check email from his bedroom, right? He had tea and a pipe. He worked on his lectures. He was a professor, so he worked on his lectures first thing in the morning. Then he would teach. Then he would, after lunch, he would walk with his friend. They would have a dialogue about what they were working on. And then he would do his reading and light work at home. So this was according to people who've written about him, a very strict schedule that he kept. And it was automatic, right? It was something that folded into his life. And that's this idea, automaticity. We want decision automaticity or decision leverage that we can use so that we're not having to make a bunch of decisions in the morning. And that's really what the point of this is. And the other thing you can think about is this idea of liberating constraints or positive constraints. I'm going to be talking about that. So when I started my career, thought what I really want is freedom. I want as much freedom as possible, and I want as few constraints as possible. And at a certain point, I achieved a version of that was pretty good. And what I found is that I was soft, losing my edge, not as productive, because I didn't have enough boundaries. I didn't have enough structure. So what we need is structure and unstructure, right? If it's too much structure, you're going to rebel against it at some point. If it's too much unstructure, you're not going to be as productive. So we want to be in that sweet spot. And I'm going to outline how you can do that and make up your own version of that. So another big issue you've probably heard about is decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is the idea that your brain is a muscle, and your brain will fatigue like any other muscle if you give it too much work, if the workload is too much. So think about this. We make 35,000 decisions today, 35,000 decisions, 226 decisions about food alone. So here's just an example. Let's say I'm going to make a shake for breakfast. Do I want to put a banana in it or an apple? Do I want to use milk or yogurt? 1% or 2%? Drink it now or after my workout? This is just a tiny little thing. If you open your fridge and you're like, hey, I'm hungry, I want to eat something. If there's 100 things in your fridge, your brain is having to look at every single one of those and say, not that one, maybe that one, I'll come back to that. Oh, that looks interesting, I'm not sure. So this is what I mean by decision fatigue. This is all the stuff that we do all day. And as I mentioned, your brain will fatigue just like anything else. And so we have to optimize this in some way. And the thing is that the key thing to understand is that these trivial decisions that seem stupid, like which toothpaste to buy, they actually, you pay a tax, you pay a cognitive tax, you pay a productivity tax for making those decisions. Um, they deplete cognitive energy, they increase cognitive load, they block flow. You won't know why, but by 2 p.m., you're just kind of like, ugh, I'm tired. You know, I'm tired. I need to take a nap. I need to do something else. My brain isn't operating the way it should. Part of that, a big part of that, is probably decision fatigue. And that's why also people who are trying to quit smoking, the time that they go back to smoking is usually around 9 p.m. because they've made decisions all day long. And now it's like, I'm tired. I just want to relax. You know what? F it. I'm just going to have a cigarette, right? That's what happens. You're more weakened at that point. So, how do we solve this? We need operating rules. Operating rules are just if this, then that, right? It's things that your brain knows this is how we do it. There's no thinking, we just execute. And what it will give you is superfluidity rather than sort of this friction throughout the day, all these decisions that are slowing you down. You get superfluid, you get fast because you're not having to make those decisions. It allows you to have divergent thinking, which is creativity, which is a way of seeing your business in a different way because you haven't used up the bandwidth for all these trivial things. And so you have more breakthroughs as a result. So here's some micro decisions that you can make explicit. You can decide in advance. When I wake up, do I get water before I shower or after I shower? Do I check email before or after I shower? Do I get a snack in between showering and checking email? Do you eat before or after your workout? What foods? You could eat the same foods every single day for breakfast and lunch if you wanted to and just be done with it. No more decisions. Um, so this is the kind of stuff that I want you to start thinking about. And I know it may seem anal, retentive, and granular and way too specific, but the more specific, the better. You're freeing up time to be productive in your business by doing this in advance. And you only have to do it once, and then you just refine it after that. And it, to me, it's kind of like a video game. That's how I think of it. I don't think of it as some difficult thing. I think of it as kind of a video game, and I have a playful attitude with it, right? It's just a matter of trying to work with it, optimize it as best you can. So the idea is that once you figure it out, you're able to set it and forget it. And of course, things change. Your kid gets sick. All kinds of things are going to happen. And like with my son who was autistic, that's the point. You're taking a chaotic foundation, which is our industry, and you're just overlaying some structure on top of that. But you know the chaos is going to be there. It's not saying it's not going to be there. It is going to be there. This is just going to help you with it. And so make early mornings decisions explicit. So for me, I have 6 eggs and 2 pieces of toast every morning. I had that this morning. I'm done. I didn't have to make any decisions. We get the eggs that I like, Dave's Killer Bread, thin sliced wheat toast, and that's it. So it makes things much easier. And we're trying to remove should I or shouldn't I from your day. So here's some, just to give you examples of what this might look like. I love this. I forget who said this, but check in with yourself before you check in with the world. Recruiters, probably 90% of them are checking email within 5 minutes of waking up. And that can give you the feeling of productivity because like, well, I'm on at 6 a.m. or I'm on right away. But what research shows is that actually, again, if you had that work week where it's unlimited hours, you generally speaking will be far less productive than if you compress it into something very specific and you turn up the intensity on your time. And also, you're not going to burn out in the same way. So even if it was 10 minutes of something, journaling, some spiritual practice, a light workout, 10 push-ups, anything besides, from my point of view, just immediately checking email from your bedroom. Here's one you would use in your business. Never accept a no from someone who isn't qualified to say yes. This removes a lot of guessing. when it comes to, I talked to this person, they said that I have to talk to human resources. Well, is that person really the person? Is that the CEO? Is that the person that is at the top of the department? If not, maybe I can call someone else before I call HR, right? So if I know that I'm not going to accept a no from someone who isn't qualified to say yes, it speeds up my decision making. I can just move on to the next thing. As I mentioned, my advice, never check email from your bedroom. From a brain static standpoint, from a sleep hygiene standpoint, from just a life standpoint, that would be a suggestion, but it's up to you. I'm just giving you these are operating rules basically, right? Go to bed at the same time every day. That's easy. If you say I'm going to bed at 9:30, go to bed at 9:30. Don't check Facebook and Instagram before lunch. I have them removed from my phone most of the time. They're not even on there. If they are on there, I use an app to block them, or to insert friction with them as well. The one I use is called ClearSpace, and I really like that one a lot. You can set it up to where you have to do 10 push-ups before checking Instagram, for instance. It's very, very cool. So create friction for the things that you don't want to impede your day. Always get a direct flight. That could be something that saves you a ton of grief. If you just say, from now on, I'm just getting a direct flight. Again, you're not dealing with lost luggage as much, that kind of thing. That might be something you decide. Always ask for interview times in advance. So just if I don't get a retainer, I'm going to ask for interview times in advance. There's not any sort of reason not to. And with my staff, that was our policy. You either get a retainer or you get interview times in advance, or you at least ask for interview times in advance. They may say no, and you can negotiate that, but it's a policy that we always ask for interview times in advance. So again, might seem exceedingly granular, but it's going to lower your cognitive load, which is going to increase your creativity, increase your energy level. And this is a key idea. There's no time for thinking at 5 in the morning if you want to be productive. There's only time for executing a predetermined script, right? So I think I've landed the plane on this concept. I'm not going to give you more examples, but if you got questions, I'll try to leave a little bit of time at the end to talk about the application of this. So here's an example of what that wake up might look like when I say some granular detail. So number one, I've got my clothes laid out the night before, right? That's really important. Get up at 5. In my case, take a cold shower for 3 minutes. It's the first thing I do. Then I brush my teeth. Then I chug water. If my wife's up, I'll make the bed and go downstairs, brew coffee, which is already preset the night before. You can also preset this to go off if you really want to add some motivation to get out of bed and downstairs at the right time. You can preset up the coffee to go off at 5:15, so it's going to be ready at 5:20, right? That'll get you moving out of the bed because you don't like burnt coffee, or I don't like burnt coffee. And then in my case, I get to the office by 6 a.m. I work till 8:45. And then I've got this fixed object in my schedule, which is jujitsu or kickboxing at 9 in the morning. So this is a positive constraint. I mentioned positive constraints, liberating constraints. In your case, it might be I got to drop my kids off at school at 7:30 in the morning. It might be I'm meeting my friend at the gym at 7 a.m. That appointment that you set up, if you don't have an appointment in the morning, then my suggestion would be to make one every single day. Even if it's just sending an email to a dormant client at the end of the day saying, hey, Bob, I'm going to give you a call between 8 and 9 in the morning tomorrow. I wanted to see if there's anything we could help you with. I'll give you a call then. Whether Bob answers or not, it doesn't matter. You've obligated yourself to make a phone call by 9 a.m., right? So that gets you up and gets you moving. So that's what I mean by a positive constraint. You want to install something early in the morning that is a fixed object to get you moving. So for me, I like the schedule because I work from 6 till 8:45. I've got almost 3 hours of work done before I leave to go to class. So think about that. I know I'm going a little fast because, like I said, this could be a full day seminar. So I want to try to get to as much as we can today. Hopefully that all makes sense. And if you want to track your habits, this is the app that I use. I've used a lot of different ones over the years. This one is excellent because it's minimalist. If you know James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, this is his app. And it's really cool because he has the same kind of philosophy that I do, in that I've had habit trackers where you can have unlimited habits. And at one time, I think I had like 19 habits that I was tracking daily, which is just ridiculous, and overwhelming. This one forces you only get 6. You cannot have more than 6 habits per day that you track. And he's got the same philosophy that I have, which is that tiny actions done consistently produce massive results. So if you need help setting things up in your calendar, I would check out the Atoms app. Very, very simple, easy to use. Okay, one more strategy here. If you're one of these people who has a very hard time not hitting snooze or not getting up at the time that you said that you were going to get up, I just want to give you something that's really, really simple here. So you can probably guess I'm going to say remove choice, right? We don't want you to be making choices. We want this to be fixed in place. So one thing is you put your alarm across the other side of the bedroom, right? That's going to force you to get up and walk across the room. When you're out of bed and you've walked across the bedroom, you're probably not going to get back in and go to sleep. The other one, like I said, is for me, if I preset the coffee pot to go off at a certain time, I will get up because I don't like burnt coffee. I don't want to burn the house down. It's good motivation to actually get up at the time you said you were going to. Don't have your phone in your bedroom. That's one way to remove distractions that might keep you up all night. And don't have your computer or put your phone and your computer in your office. That's one. My office here is like a detached studio behind my house. So if I want to make sure the night before, I don't do this all the time, but if I got something going on, I'll put my phone and my computer out here so that when I wake up, there's really nothing to do if I want to get online except come out here to my office where I want to be working. So do something like this that basically forces the behavior that you want. A fixed object, an appointment, we already talked about. That really is the best solution because you don't really have a choice. Examples of that: fitness class at 6 a.m., meet my buddy at the gym, driving kids to school, or if nothing else, like I said, send an email every day at the end of the day, obligating yourself to make a call first thing in the morning. All right. So if you do those things, you will get in the habit of waking up at the same time every day, almost certainly. All right. So that's part one, which is your launching your boot up sequence. What I went through is we want to eliminate decision fatigue. We want to start to apply decision leverage. And we want to do that by making all these micro decisions explicit. Well, it's 8 o'clock. Okay. Just want to make sure I pace myself. So hopefully that'll make sense. We're going to keep moving here. So what do you do as a result? I would suggest you write out in granular detail what happens from the time you wake up until the time you arrive at the office. Okay, that's part one of this. Then you can set it and forget it. You can modify it as you go. And you just follow that script. And again, you have a playful attitude with it. I don't follow my scripts perfectly every day by any means. But it gives me, even if I hit it 80%, 70%, it's way better than waking up and just improvising. All right, so that's part one. Let's go to part two. Part two is what happens when you get to the office. And because of the time we have, this part's a little compressed. Normally I would go into a lot more detail, but I want to give you some things to think about. So now you've had your morning before you've arrived at the office, and you arrive at the office. And what we want to avoid is what I call the mid-morning panic attack. So maybe it didn't go well. Maybe I hit snooze, right? So the first commitment that I made was to get up at 6 a.m. I broke my commitment instantly, right? That's my strategic Gary the night before said I'm getting up at 6 a.m. And then lazy Gary hit the snooze button. So I've already broke a contract with myself. I hit snooze. I checked social media from my bedroom. I got lost just doom scrolling the news or whatever. Spent 20 minutes doing that. Maybe I skipped my workout because I'm running behind because I hit snooze and I got lost in social media. As a result, I got to the office late. So I'm feeling harried. I'm feeling rushed. And then I got distracted researching automation tools, AI tools, looking at LinkedIn, just scrolling through the feed, but not taking action, just kind of scrolling. And I didn't make any decisions. I'm researching, quote unquote, these different tools, but unless I made some decision to move a next action, that all of that is going to vaporize in my brain in a couple of minutes. So you look at the clock, it's 11 a.m. and you haven't made a phone call. So if you think about this kind of a morning, what happens? I've had that kind of a morning, and usually it's a panic attack. Like, oh shit, I haven't done anything of value, and it's 11 o'clock in the morning. Um, and unless you are really deliberate with your time, this will be the default setting that you have in most cases, just because it's the nature of technology these days. This is designed to be a slot machine in our pockets, and that's what it is. It's just pull the thing and see what's there, right? And we're getting dopamine as a result, and we're being puppet mastered by these tech companies who are basically just messing with our dopamine. And so this is what we want to avoid. And one concept I want you to think about is this idea of separating exploration from exploitation. And I'll tell you what I mean. So exploration in this way is, we can call it divergent thinking. It's creative thinking. Your brain is open wide. Like a great example is Amazon. Amazon knows what you're into. If it's fitness equipment, you're going to see cool fitness equipment, all kinds of stuff that you've never even thought of, like, oh my God, I've never thought of this thing. And there's novelty, which is a flow trigger. So a flow state, I think you guys know, is a peak performance state. It's what athletes call being in the zone. And you can get into a flow state in your work, but it has to be set up in a particular way. And something like Amazon would be fun to explore, or research tools, like I said, automation tools, new tools, LinkedIn, those are fun to explore. Our brains enjoy that because it's novel stimulation. Daydreaming fits into this, researching software, creative thinking. You get a little small dopamine hit from that. And it's fun. I like shopping on Amazon. I like seeing stuff that I haven't thought of. But the problem with this is that it's not going to put you in a mode of getting stuff done. So we want to separate that thing, which there's nothing wrong with it, but we want to separate that from what we can call exploitation. Exploitation in this sense is a good thing. Okay, you're exploiting the 60 minutes that you have to the fullest extent. You're leveraging, maybe I should call it leveraging, but you're leveraging your time to the fullest extent. And so that's maximizing your per hour output. And instead of divergent thinking where I'm open, it's convergent thinking and I'm narrowly focused. I'm narrowly focused on this thing that I've already decided I'm going to do. And that's get it done mode. So you're going to want to spend time here and you're going to get distracted with stuff. I do as well. We all do. So what I would suggest is that you create an exploration bucket. So this could be a physical bucket if you want. You could put a little bucket on your desk, take a sticky note and write the app that you want to check out or the cool productivity tool, write it on there and drop it in the bucket. Or you could just have a note that you use for that, which is what I do. I just have a note for business exploration and I've got a note for personal exploration. And so if I'm getting distracted by something, I'll say, nope, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to put it in my exploration bucket. Maybe I get to it, maybe I don't. But you want to really be able to separate those. If you can't separate these, then chances are you're going to work really long hours, exhaust yourself, and not feel like you're productive, which is the worst outcome because you're tired, you've sucked up all the oxygen in your personal life, you're short with your kids, you're short with your spouse, you're not getting to your workouts, and it feels like there's nothing you can do about it. But again, a little bit of conscious thought helps, goes a long way in this way. So one thing to think about as well, and this is kind of I call it a super skill that I think is underestimated in our business. And again, if you take nothing away from today, I'd really want you to understand this idea of accurate project selection because it is really, really crucial. Stephen Covey is an author who wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he talked about this concept of putting the big rocks in first, right? So if you don't know, I'll explain it to you here. So let's say there's a jar, just like this, an empty jar, and I've got 3 things I need to fit. All of this needs to fit into this jar. I've got big rocks, I've got some smaller rocks, and then I've got sand. And in our case, what are the big rocks? The big rocks are the things you should do first. Scheduling interviews, closing activities, marketing, recruiting, planning, all the blocking and tackling stuff. And his concept is if you sequence this wrong, you will not be able to fit it all in here. So if I started with the sand and then I add the little rocks, there definitely will not be room for the big rocks to go into the jar. So I have to go in the proper order. And that means if I put the big rocks in first, then the little rocks will sort of, when I put those in, they will fall in around the big rocks. There'll be room for that. And then after that, there'll be sand, which I will pour in, and that'll find its way into there as best it can, right? So if I do it in that sequence, I can get it all done. And that is, the big rocks also have to do with your accurate search selection. So which searches am I going to work on? How am I going to prioritize those? Is one of the biggest questions you could ask, and it is really underestimated in our business how important this is. Not really going to go, maybe I'll come back to this later if I have time, how to do this. But the idea that this is a super skill that you need to develop is really important. So I gave you an example of one way to scrutinize what are the things that get my attention. In my case, it would be a retainer, right? That would be number one. Second, so my business, I did around 70% retained, still did 30% contingency because I wanted the flexibility. And there were actually my number one client. I tried to convert all of my clients to retained. I converted, I think, around 70% of them, but my number one client refused to convert. And not really a great logical reason. I had done a ton of business with them. They're like, no, we just don't work that way. We just have never done it. So I wasn't willing to give them up. So with them, I said, okay, what I would need is interview times in advance, right? So that's how you can start to differentiate the quality of different searches. One, they pay me money up front or a deposit, even a small deposit is fine, because what I want is their attention and focus. Number two, you won't do that. Well, you won't pay money. How about your time? Will you give up your time in advance through interview times in advance? That helps me to categorize. And then beneath that are the ones that are less trustworthy, right? So, yeah, I may come back to this, but it is a massive topic. So, another thing to think about is when you're thinking about your day, what is the most important thing to do? Is it checking email? Is it automating? Is it marketing? What is the most important thing for me to do in order to be productive and produce revenue? Number one is scheduling interviews, right? Interviews are, if you don't have interviews, you don't have anything. Even if you've got a beautifully integrated AI system, even if you've got great social media presence, you got to schedule interviews. Number two is to schedule interviews. And number three is to schedule interviews. And the reason I say it this way is because it's so easy to get lost in everything else. But again, if you don't have quality clients talking to quality candidates, the rest is just BS. The rest is just, fluff. So all of that stuff has to lead to more interviews. And so our brains really like specificity and they penalize vagueness, right? If I say I'm going to work out this week, your brain has nothing actionable. If I say I'm going to do 3 sets of 30 push-ups tomorrow at 8 a.m., your brain has something to work with and it will work on that. So it's the same thing here. So here's what I tell my clients. Aim for 1 interview per day and whatever else you can get done by 5. Aim for 1 interview per day and whatever else you can get done by 5. Now, this is what I would call a good guideline, but a bad rule, right? It's a very good guideline. It gives you a very specific target, just like an archer. It's not like just fire an arrow. It's here's the bullseye, but here's the other concentric circles. Do I shoot arrows because I assume I'm going to get a bullseye every single time? No, not at all. But I need the bullseye to have something to shoot my direction. I need to know where it's supposed to go so that I can approximate it. And it's the same thing here. In most cases, you're not going to get 22 interviews per month. That would put you in a very elite level. I'm talking about a single desk, obviously. But even if you get it half the time, that puts you at 11 interviews per month. If you have an interview to placement ratio of 1 out of 5, that puts you at 2 placements. If you have an average fee of $30,000, that puts you at $60,000 a month, right? So that's the practical use of this, even if it doesn't work every single day, is to direct your behavior. Because again, we are being distracted constantly. It's not our fault, but we're just constantly being distracted by life, technology, etc. So you want to give your brain a very specific target to shoot for so it knows how to help you get there. And then this quote from Peter Lefkowitz I learned early in the business, do the closest thing to money first. If nothing else, do the closest thing to money first. And okay, so let's talk about how you can pull this together a little bit in terms of your, we'll call it your 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Action plan. Number one, like I mentioned, you have to handle the big rocks early. You have to know what those big rocks are: marketing, recruiting, sourcing, planning, etc. You want to handle those as early as possible in your schedule. Decide on your marketing rhythm. We didn't really get a chance to go into this, but I would want you to think about something like 10 by 10. 10 by 10 means I do 10 marketing actions by 10 a.m. Or you could do 5 by 9. 5 marketing actions by 9 a.m. And a marketing action, I'm talking about proactive, outbound marketing. I'm not talking about your other strategies. If you've got marketing funnels and social media and all of that is separate. I'm just talking about the actions you're going to take, which would include in-mail, email, phone call, right? Proactive, outbound. So decide on what that rhythm is. It can even be 3 by 9. I'm going to make 3 easy marketing calls by 9 a.m. I'm going to send 3 easy messages to dormant clients to reboot them by 9 a.m. But have some type of baseline cadence that keeps you in that motion, right? So think about your marketing rhythm. 10 by 10 I mentioned already, which is 10 by 10 or 5 by 9. Oops. Yeah, so that's again, this is abbreviated for today. If you guys have questions, we can probably tackle some of this at the end. So let's talk about the last piece that really kind of ties this together and makes it all work. If you don't have this last piece, it's very difficult to make everything else I said work. And that is to engineer an epic tomorrow, which is planning. And I love this quote from Dwight Eisenhower. In preparing for battle, I've always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. So when you develop a plan, it doesn't mean you're going to stick to it perfectly. I don't stick to my plans perfectly. But it's the deep thought that I put into, like I mentioned before, accurate project selection, accurate task selection. That deep thought is what tells you in advance, this is what I want to target. This is what's important to focus on. And that is worth a lot because it'll allow you to improvise a little bit when things go astray, which they will, right? We know that. So think about this. Let's say that you want to have an epic weekend and you want to take your son paddleboarding, like you can see in the picture here. So you've got this idea. I want to go paddleboarding with my son. I want to get on the lake early on Saturday morning and I want to enjoy myself. And I don't want to be thinking about work. I want to be completely in the moment with my son. And so you get out there and you get onto the water, and I'll give you 2 scenarios. Scenario 1, you're driving there and you go, oh shit, I didn't plan for Monday. Oh man, I'm supposed to call this guy back and I forgot to write that down. I forgot to document that. And there's this static in your brain. So maybe you get on the water with your son, but you're only partially there. You're only partially enjoying it. Part of your brain, a big part of your brain, is distracted. It's distracted with stress because you're not prepared for Monday, and it's distracted with tasks because they're not documented properly, right? So there's this low grade ambient level of stress that you're going to enjoy throughout the entire weekend. It's going to be with you the whole time unless you do something about it. Scenario B, Friday afternoon, you take some time at the end of the day. You take maybe 30 minutes, you map out Monday morning. It's not perfect, but you map out your top priorities. You write down the top 3. If you're going to do 3 calls by 9 a.m., you write down what those calls are. You map it out, you put it on paper, you put it in your planner, your whatever ATS planner, whatever you're using, and then you leave the office. So you're going to enjoy an ambient level of peace because when you get on the lake in the morning, you're going to think, oh God, I've got Monday, maybe the Monday scaries come up and you go, Monday morning, I've got this call, I've got this meeting, and you go, oh, wait a minute, I have a plan. I did take care of that. And it's going to give you peace for 3 days or stress for 3 days. That's the choice you have. And so my advice is obviously you want to show up for your kids, you want to show up for your life. So that just takes a little bit of premeditation. And the difference is not just one weekend where you felt better. This is the difference of your life. Your life is either going to be static, where it's just nonstop work, like bees buzzing around in there, or you could have some boundaries where you say, my life comes first. My business is a vehicle that gives me a better life. It's not a thing that sucks up all the oxygen from my family. That's a decision you have to make. Okay, so that's the implication of being good at planning, or at least doing some planning. So my advice to you is set a time. There's research. It's called if-then planning. It means that if you decide when and where something is supposed to happen, it's 2 to 3 times more likely to happen. Just going back to that example, I'm going to work out tomorrow is okay, but it's not as good as I'm going to do bench press at 8 a.m. and some pull-ups or whatever it might be, right? So specificity is what you want. So let's think of 2 ways of thinking about time, right? So one is the overstuffed day, which kind of looks like this suitcase. And, there's days where my day looks like this too. So again, I'm giving you broad strokes, but it's not some sort of perfect formula. And the feeling is I'm running out of time. So this is a chronic feeling. I'm running out of time. At all times, I'm running out of time. There's never enough time, right? This is what you say to yourself. But there's this quote, I forget the woman's name who said this, but how you spend your time is how you spend your life. So if this is your set point, you will go to the grave saying, I'm running out of time. You'll run out of time until you die. Like, there won't be enough time until you die. Because however you're spending your time, that is your life, So that's why I'm saying you want to make a conscious decision about this. The organized day, and it'd be nice if our days could be like this, but let's just go with it. This idea that you can at least premeditate and add structure. I have all the time in the world. Is that true? Yeah, it is true. You do have all the time that anybody else has in this world, right? How you choose to use it is up to you. But I could say I'm running out of time, or I could say I have all the time in the world. Both can be true from a different point of view. Navy SEALs use this. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So if this is good for Navy SEALs, I think it can be good for us as well. The idea that frenetic activity, hustle culture, that kind of stuff is somehow better than slow is smooth, smooth is fast, I think is erroneous. Both can work. I mean, we know people who are ADHD and super productive, and that can work. So if you're one of those people, that may be the best mode for you. But for most people, that's going to lead to burnout. It's going to lead to a disrupted life, maybe divorce, bad relationships, bad health, etc. So I'm just giving you different ways to think about time and to think about your approach to your business. Do I want to wake up every morning feeling like my hair is on fire? And how long do I want to feel like my hair is on fire? 20 years, 30 years? I don't want to feel like that. This other, I forget the name. I think it's called BREMA. It's a breathing thing, which is no hurry, no pause. So sometimes when my wife and I are getting ready to take a trip, we have an Airstream and we travel. I take my motorcycle. We go do off-roading and adventures. And she'll say, what time are we leaving in the morning? And I say, well, I'm getting up at 6 or 5 or whatever. And how about we no hurry, no pause? And we kind of fight about it because she wants to, like, we're leaving at 8 a.m. But I'm like, this is the time I'm getting up and it'll be no hurry, no pause for me. But of course, we set a target time. But I'm just saying this is a different way to think about productivity. And it correlates. I told you I was studying with Flow Research Collective for the last 4.5 years or so. That correlates with super productivity. Frenetic hustle doesn't correlate with it over time. It does in the short term. Another way to think is, people would typically say multitasking is a sign of ambition, but I want you to at least consider that monotasking might actually be a sign of ambition. Working with structure, working sequentially, doesn't mean that you do one thing for an hour. In many cases, that's not going to make any sense. It just means you do one thing at a time. So it can be sequential monotasking over the course of an hour is way better than layering tasks on top of each other. Because what people have found is that there's really no such thing as multitasking. There's just rapid switch tasking. So your brain is switching tasks very quickly, but it's not actually multitasking. And we talked about at the very beginning that the more interruptions you have, the less chance you have of being in a flow state. So you need some sort of sustained focus in order to be in a flow state. So I want you to just consider that monotasking is a sign of ambition. And the other thing is that active recovery is non-negotiable. I didn't really realize this until I started studying with flow research. And one way to think about it, hustle culture would say that if you think about your day and how you would go about your day, it's kind of like I wake up, I get to work, and I just grind like this until I fall off a cliff, right? Some people can go till 8 p.m. that way, but most people hit about 2 p.m. and they have a big drop in their energy. And what they found, this is all research backed by behavioral scientists. What they found is that the way it actually works, if you want it to be super productive, is that it looks more like a staircase. So I stress myself with work, then I take a short break. Then I stress myself with work, then I take a short break. If you do that throughout the day, you will be more productive. And the cool thing is you'll leave the office without that fatigue feeling. You'll leave it with less fatigue, I should say. So when you get to 2 p.m., you're not exhausted. So the idea is maybe you do 50 minutes of focused work and you take 10 minutes to do anything that lowers your cognitive load. And one easy way to think of that is it doesn't involve a screen. Primarily, it does not involve a screen, right? So it could be, I used to have an exercise bike in here. It could be a little walk in the yard, could be a little gardening, whatever it is that you do to lower your stress level. And you can decide, I do it every 2 hours, whatever makes sense for you. But it's the opposite of just grind until I collapse, right? Think of it as that staircase of stress followed by recovery throughout the day. If you do that, your energy is sustained in a very different way. So let's talk about this power down and what I mean by this. Okay, so the idea would be set it and forget it, same time each day. I like 4 p.m., but it's up to you what time you want to do that. As far as how long you need to plan, I would say between 30 and 60 minutes, depending on what's going on. And turn off your chimes during this time. I have my chimes and things off, except a few alarms almost all day long anyway. But if you're actually planning, you want to be able to have that uninterrupted if at all possible. And then what I would suggest is leave a 30-minute buffer afterwards. So what doesn't work is if you say, I want to leave the office by 5:30 p.m. and I want to plan for 30 minutes, so I'll start planning at 5. Generally speaking, those plans collapse. And they collapse because you're doing your best to plan. Maybe you do plan for the 30 minutes. Now it's 5:30 when you're supposed to leave and get home for dinner. But of course, you check email and like, oh, there's all this stuff I have to respond to. And now you're in the office till 6:15. So because of that, it causes friction and you're not going to do it. Whereas if you finish and give yourself 30 minutes afterwards to check email, wrap up loose ends, deal with any emergencies, then you're more likely to stick to it. So that would be my suggestion. And follow a template. Follow some type of a template. So if I handed you a blank sheet of paper and some paint and I said, paint a portrait or paint a picture, if you're like me, you'd probably freak out. Like, I don't know how to paint and I don't know what to paint. But if I handed you a coloring book and some crayons and I said, just fill in the blank lines, just fill it in, choose your colors, but fill it in, you would just get right to work. There wouldn't be any resistance because it's already defined for you. So your planning really has to be the same way. And one thing, I'm going to show you a template so you can see this, but one thing I want to tell you before we get to that is this idea of FOMO versus JOMO. So FOMO, you guys know what that is. It's fear of missing out. I've always had FOMO. I've always had big FOMO because I know the life that I want is this big and the time that I have is this big, right? So whenever I'm doing one thing, I'm not doing something else, right? Like right now, I'm teaching this class. I'm not working on my marketing. I'm not at jujitsu. There's a million things that I'm not doing because I'm doing this. That's just how life is. That's FOMO, right? JOMO is the joy of missing out. And it's a different idea. It's a recognition that you're going to die with a full inbox. It's a recognition. If I went through a list of things that are aspirational, that at one time or another I said I wanted to do, this is not all my list, but this is some of it. We could say, I want to see the Great Wall of China. I want to learn how to speak Spanish. I want to spend more time with my mom. I want to write a bestseller. I want to start a podcast. I could go through all these different things that I maybe want to do. But Jomo is saying, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do all of those things. So why not be a grown up about it and say, because I have limited time, what am I going to do? So I'm going to choose. I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to do all these 20 things. I'm going to choose the 2 or 3 that I really care about, and I'm going to over index on those. I'm going to become a black belt in jujitsu. I'm going to become whatever. I've got specific things that I want to do. And the other ones that have been on my list for 20 years, like learn to speak Spanish, maybe I'll get to it, but most likely I won't, because it doesn't fit with the most important thing in my life. And your work is the same way. If your to-do list is this long, that's FOMO, right? Joy of missing out would shrink it to about here. So it says, you're not going to do all that stuff. What are you going to do? Like, take sovereignty of your own borders in a way. Like decide, what am I going to do? Because that'll turn up the resolution on those decisions, and that'll lead to a lot of focus. Hopefully that makes sense. But here's an example. Okay, so this is something that I would suggest. It's kind of a simple way to look at your planning time. So number one, if you're doing weekly goals, which I highly suggest, you're going to review those so that you see, where am I in relation to that? I say I wanted to get 3 interviews by Friday. Today's Tuesday. How am I doing so far? Right? So you're reviewing that. So this idea of goal directedness, that my daily actions relate to goals that I've set in advance, that is, again, if you take, nothing from today, that is a big supercharger in terms of productivity. Is my goal is this, and so when I'm thinking about my planning for tomorrow, what am I going to do that's going to lead me to that goal? Whether it's my revenue goal, my interview goal, whatever it might be. You're connecting your goal to tomorrow's actions. So that's number one, reviewing them. What are the weekly goals I set last Friday? Then you're going to create tomorrow's goals, right? And what I would suggest for you to do, and I know this is really antithetical for recruiters, is to pick between 3 and, let's say, upper end would be 10 top priorities for tomorrow. There's actually research on the longer the to-do list, the less things get done. So the longer the to-do list, the less actually gets done. Whereas this is kind of that JOMO thing. What's the joy of missing out? Well, I'm going to say there's 3 to 10 things that I'm going to put down as must-dos for tomorrow. If I can do 11, 12, 13, that's great, and I will do that. But I need to know, what are the things that I'm actually going to commit to? And then time box them on your calendar so that you know when they're supposed to happen. That alone will help you tremendously, is to shrink your to-do list. The other thing is to remove the friction. If you just want to make a simple analogy here, if I thought about, I'm going to work out at 6 a.m. and I'm going to meet my buddy at the gym. If I hit snooze and I get out of bed and I don't have breakfast handled and I don't have my clothes laid out, the lack of preparation just adds friction and makes it less likely it's going to happen. So when I say prep tasks to eliminate friction the next day, it could be name gathering, it could be getting phone numbers, whatever it is that you need to be able to just execute the next day. That's really what the planning time is for, is to decide what's essential, take care of the prep that you need to do to make it happen tomorrow, and then that adds that fluidity to it, right? And whatever cleanup you need to do, clean out your inbox, whatever it is that you need to do to tie up loose ends to feel good about going home. So when I said, you're planning that epic weekend to take your son paddleboarding, this is kind of what you would do in advance to make sure that you have a great weekend, right? So this is a daily agenda. Your weekly agenda is a little different, but this would be your daily agenda. How are we doing here? Okay, I'm going to land the plane pretty quick. I don't know that we'll have time for questions, unfortunately, but one last thing I wanted to say is, when you're planning your actions, the research shows that the tinier your goals are for tomorrow, the more chance they're going to get done. Tiny goals are a flow trigger. Big goals cause some resistance because they feel consequential. Tiny goals help us to direct and focus our attention. And I'll show you some examples of what I mean in just a sec. This will make sense. And it's the same idea. No time for thinking, only time for execution when you're actually doing the work. And the failure point of your daily goals is they're not tiny enough in most cases. That's the reason that you say, I planned, but then it never happened the next day. Usually it's because the goals were too broad. They weren't tiny enough to feel actionable. So here's some examples. Rather than saying find candidates for my controller search, that could be a goal for tomorrow, which is a good goal. It's just not very specific. So instead of that, you'd say create a juicy 60-second video for the controller search, right? That you could get right onto. Now, some people would say to break that down even further, but let's just leave it at that. That's what I mean by tiny goals, not find candidates for accountant search, but call these 10 accountants tomorrow. And I've got them listed out. I know who they are or whatever, contact them. So not get more job orders, but write short MPC email and Mike Smith. Okay, so this is what I want you to think about as your tiny goals, which are narrow, specific, and you can see that you would get into action on those much quicker than just saying get more job orders. Like, where do I start with that? Okay, so a couple things I already said. Embrace JOMO. You're not going to get it all done, so decide what it is that you are going to get done. 3 to 10 actions for tomorrow. Plan your time boxes in advance. However you want to map out your day, you want to have a slot for each of these things. I would suggest you post your schedule daily where you're going to see it so that you get used to it. Again, you're not going to stick to it perfectly, but you're just setting it up for success. And one thing to think about this is that if this all seems completely overwhelming, I would say just focus on the morning. Don't even worry about the afternoon. Just plan the morning as best you can. So from the time I wake up until lunchtime, that's what I'm going to focus on. I'll focus on what I do before I get to the office and what I do up until lunch. And in the afternoon, I can be more reactive. That's kind of how I operate. If I was as specific as I'm sounding on all this stuff all the time, I would drive myself nuts. So that's why I said, what do I do before work? What do I do up until lunch? What do I do at the very end of the day? And the afternoons can be more for improvisation and dealing with things as they happen. I would go analog on your plan and print it out. So there's good research on the kinesthetic involvement of checking things off, the pattern recognition. The pattern recognition is a flow trigger. So when you check a box, you get a tiny dopamine hit, which is free motivation. It's like when you play I play solitaire at night. If I'm up, I'll play solitaire, and I really want to get that thing. You want to get the recognition, that pattern recognition, that you solved the puzzle. It gives you a dopamine hit. It gets you excited to continue that task. And so, if you're checking things off physically, it's a different level of engagement than just having a list online. So, if you can, and if it works for you, I would print out your plan and check things off to build momentum. And then I love this question from Danny Cahill. If you're planning tomorrow, what's the fastest way to my next interview? It's a great question. What is the fastest way to my next interview? If you're having a meeting with your team, what's the fastest way to your next interview? Excellent question. I told you the top 3 things, the most important 3 things in your day are scheduling interviews, and scheduling interviews. So if this was your only planning question for tomorrow, it would be better than most recruiters, honestly. All right, so let's land the plane here. A couple more things. Pick a specific time for your daily planning. I said 4 o'clock. Pick a specific time for weekly planning as well. I like Friday at 11 a.m. and then be done by Friday at noon if you want a 4.5-day work week. Go tiny or go home on your goals for tomorrow. Make them very, very specific. And decide on a template. I gave you those 5 areas that you could plan for. So yours might be different, but you want to have a template so that it's like that coloring book that I mentioned. And then set alarms for your daily and weekly power down so they happen at the same time. All right, so we are about out of time. So I just want to recap what we talked about. Number 1 was power up, 5 a.m. You're going to launch your boot up sequence. And that's just, you wake up, you're groggy, you don't have to think, you just execute and you follow that script for your morning. Part 2 is your power on. That's when you arrive at the office and you're going to maximize your morning momentum. And you're really going to focus on that morning time, how to maximize your per hour output, at least for 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours. And then you can loosen up a little in the afternoon. And then we just talked about engineering an epic tomorrow. and how that has benefits not just for your productivity at work, but it adds to your overall life. Your life quotient, your lifestyle quotient will go up significantly if you just add planning to it, and you'll feel a lot better. All right, so that is it. If you want to get to know me better and you want to take this training further, I would suggest you go check out the complimentary report that I have, which is all about installing consistency in your production. It's a free report. You can download it on my website. It's therecruitinglab.com. And I go through 7 different areas where you can improve and minimize, can't eliminate roller coaster revenue. It's part of our business, but you don't want it to feel like jagged peaks and valleys where your emotions are going up and down because your revenue is going up and down like that. It'd be better if it was a rounded map, right? So this report will help you to install some consistency around revenue predictability. So go check it out. It's free, therecruitinglab.com. Okay, I'm going to take a breath. I was rushing through that, if you guys couldn't tell, but hopefully that was helpful. And Ben, I don't know if we have any time for questions, but I'm open to that if you'd like to.
You do have a few minutes. If anybody has a question, somebody says Jomo is such a cool concept. Thanks for the perspective. Good stuff as usual. Great session. I think you did it like what's kind of funny is like I was ready to tee up a few questions and then you went and answered them. I was like, man.
Good.
So everybody
Good.
in the chat, make sure to follow Gary. I just shared his LinkedIn profile and drop an emoji in the chat of your thoughts and what you got out of this. Sam, you really nailed it with that. That's so true. Boom, 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 boom. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Oh, question. Not sure if you can review the Jomo. I didn't quite get it, please.
Jomo, yeah, it's the joy of missing out. On the practical side, you could say if somebody invites you to a party and you say you're not going to go, that can be really joyful because you stay home and pet your dog and watch Netflix, right? We've all experienced that. But the way that I mean it is, it's sort of an acknowledgement that you're not going to get all the things done that you want to get done. And so when it relates to your business, when you have, let's say, 8 job orders on your desk, you don't want to just say, I've got 8 job orders. You want to think, okay, I've got 2 A's, 4 B's, and 3 C's. That's JOMO. That's in a way you're saying they're not all equal, right? I'm not going to focus on these the same way. So I need to start to categorize the things that I'm going to prioritize. So I embrace the idea that I'm not going to get everything done. I shrink my to-do list. And by doing that, I turn up the resolution on the things that matter, the things that are essential. So I keep using martial arts because it's an easy metaphor, but if I want to get a black belt in jujitsu, which I do, I'm going to sacrifice time with family. I'm going to sacrifice time at work. I'm going to sacrifice writing the bestseller, or other things will not happen because I'm choosing that. So it's helpful for me to say, I've assessed the landscape. I've looked at all the different things I want to do. And these are the 3 things that I'm going to do. And if I have time for the other stuff, that's fine. But I'm going to laser in on these things. And that focused intensity is what leads to really big breakthroughs. So it's really embracing the finite nature of our lives. And you can take this, you take this as it relates to everything. It relates to your life. It relates to your death. It relates to dying. We've all got an endpoint coming up. I'm 56 years old, right? So I have an endpoint. It's proximate. It's not that far off, actually. So what am I going to do with the time that I have? That's really what JOMO is. And I'm not going to be childish and delude myself, because it prevents me from taking responsibility. If I pretend that I have all the time in the world, I pretend that I can do all these things, there's no rush. I don't have to get on with it. I don't have to take action. But if I say, no, I've got limited options, I've got limited time, I'm not going to get all these things done. Now I need to get into work. I need to take responsibility. And it's like a personal sovereignty. Like I'm taking back something. this child, and I keep using childish because I'm thinking for myself, this childish idea that I can do all of these things, is just not true. Hopefully that helps.
Somebody just said the first webinar out of so far that I feel like I gained and not lost energy. Finally, someone mentioned that we're not living forever like we all pretend. Thank you. Somebody also asked you a question. Can I invite you to a one-on-one call to discuss a client who needs your coaching?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you guys can email me, Gary at therecruitinglab.com. Happy to fill in any gaps or answer questions. If you're interested in coaching, you can go to my website or just shoot me an email. It's Gary at therecruitinglab.com.
Let me see if I can try to find your emails to make it easier.
You want me to put it in the chat?
Yeah, drop it in chat.
Yeah. It's Gary at the recruiting lab. Okay. Unfortunately, that's not correct. Gary at the recruitinglab.com. I type with two fingers. Don't tell anybody. So
There we go.
all right, cool.
Cool.
And for the person that said I gained energy instead of lost energy, that was kind of my intention. Is I know how much talk there is of automation, AI, acceleration. It's exciting and it's overwhelming and it's terrifying. So that's why I kind of wanted to add something that was a little different for you to think about, something that's well within your control. So I'm glad it landed that way.
And somebody asked the question, is this recorded? Yes, they all are recorded and they go in either the VIP for the replays, which if you look at the schedule for the day of the replays, like the option for VIP is there, or in the community. And I am working on trying to get all the awesome speakers that had slides up in there too. So Gary, if you could shoot me your slides later on today, I'll get them uploaded.
Yes. Yep. We'll do.
I just want to say thank you so much, Gary, for sharing today. It's one of the reasons why I really wanted Gary to share this week is because we've talked about tech, we've talked about mindset, we've talked about AI. Like we literally just got done with the AI session a few minutes ago before we started. But the structure of how you do your day, like you said at the very beginning, it will either make or break you as a recruiter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And somebody just asked, do you set a time limit on your workout time?
No, I don't. But no. I enjoy working out. So, but I have different versions of my workout. So I have a micro workout. Like if I only have 10 minutes, I have a version for that. If I've got more time, I have a version for that. But I don't set a time limit on it. No.
Okay, cool. Well, I think we got all the questions. We'll give you guys a quick break before we get rocking and rolling with the next session. Gary, thank you so much for sharing with
You bet.
everybody today, and we'll
You
see you guys
bet.
shortly.
See you guys. Thanks for being here.